So here we are, the day after the big Apple event. I was actually going to make a video about all of this yesterday, but Apple keynotes just take way too long. But anyways, I think we can all agree that the major highlight from the keynote has to be the iPhone. Apple finally introduced the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, and surprise, surprise, it's very similar to the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus, barring some very minor changes. The first change comes in the form of build quality. The iPhone 8 and 8 Plus now sports a glass back, which means for the first time ever, Apple devices will finally support wireless charging. And I know other competitors have had this for many years, but I'm glad Apple is finally catching up. And next up, the display. The iPhone 8 and 8 Plus now have a True Tone display similar to the one found on the iPad Pro for better and more accurate colors and more accurate whites. But apart from that, in terms of design, in terms of looks, the phone is very identical to the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus. And I don't know why Apple just didn't call it the iPhone 7s and the iPhone 7s Plus. I mean, even the cameras are very similar, the only change being a software portrait lighting feature, which basically enhances the way you take portraits. It uses filters, and I know Apple doesn't want you to call them that, but they're essentially that. They change the lighting appearance in portraits, and I think it does a really good job, and I can't wait to try it. But apart from that, there's no major change. But instead of calling it a day with the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus selling for $699 starting price at 64 gigabytes of internal storage, not 32, Apple had one more thing, the iPhone 10. See, the iPhone 10 changes how an iPhone functions completely. Its design is a whole lot different, the display is different, the feel in hand is different, the camera layout is different, and a whole lot more. But in this fierce competition where you've got the likes of the Samsung Galaxy Note 8, the LG V30, even the Xiaomi Mi Mix 2, all of these bezel-less beauties, you look at the iPhone 10 and you look at that notch at the top of the screen. For me personally, I like symmetrical screens, and the iPhone 10 does not do that. And I may just be one person, but I'm sure there are thousands out there who really dislike the notch. But let's take a moment to actually learn why Apple introduced the notch in the first place. With the iPhone 10, there is no fingerprint scanner on the device, so Touch ID is gone, and Apple is relying solely on a new technology they like to call Face ID. To incorporate all of the sensors that you need for Face ID, the notch is present. So I give props to developers for actually developing Face ID and for it to work this well. You can integrate it with payments just like Touch ID. It works in the dark, and for the most part it seems like a seamless experience with no way to fool the system. But if you ask me, this is a first gen product. Face ID, just like Touch ID 1.0, is gonna have some problems. And even though Face ID might be the most advanced way to unlock your phone, it might be the most secure way to unlock your phone, some people just like the convenience of Touch ID. Touch ID has grown in convenience for many people, and Face ID will take a couple of years before it tries and becomes on that level. And I don't know why Apple just didn't give users the choice between Face ID and Touch ID, and instead just shoving Face ID up their faces, literally. I mean, it's like saying Apple couldn't fit in Touch ID onto their iPhone 10, so they decided to go with the next best alternative. I mean, come on, you could have stuck in a fingerprint scanner maybe on the bigger power button, for example, which could have given users the choice between Face and Touch ID instead of banking on this beta Face ID feature. Next up though is continuity, and I know it seems ironic talking about this when Apple's already doing it, but hear me out. When you look at the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus and compare it to the iPhone 10, on the iPhone 8 you have to touch or click the power button to get into the phone, whereas on the iPhone 10 you have to swipe up. When you swipe up on the iPhone 8 or 8 Plus, you get Control Center, but you only get that when you swipe down from the right side on the iPhone 10. But when you swipe down on the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, you get the notification shade, whereas you only get that on the iPhone 10 if you swipe down from the left side of the notch. To me, that just seems really confusing because both of these phones run essentially the same iOS version, and people would expect the same sort of, navigation system. But I think Quinn, a fellow YouTuber, pointed it out, and I just wanted to incorporate it in this video. I mean, Apple could have even stuck in maybe a 3D touch-like button where the home button might go to really make the experience seamless like what Samsung did, but they didn't do that as well. And speaking of Samsung, it brings me on to my next point, availability of the iPhone X. If you look at the Samsung Galaxy Note 8, it is set to be available globally starting in 2 days. When you compare that to the availability of the iPhone X, it's a whole 6 weeks later. So for this 6-week gap, the iPhone or Apple won't have a competitor against the likes of the Samsung Galaxy Note 8, a phone that is futuristic versus the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, which just don't compare to the Samsung Galaxy Note 8 in terms of looks, in terms of features, and all of that. Of course, the missing features are what the iPhone X brings, but coming in over 6 weeks later is just not acceptable. And that could have a lot to do with the fact that Samsung is actually supplying the OLED panels required to manufacture the iPhone X. And a fun fact, Samsung's OLED panels on the Galaxy Note 8 are twice as bright as the ones found on the iPhone X. So then I think I should just wrap this up with price. The iPhone X starting price is $999, and when that got announced, it made the Galaxy Note 8 selling for around $930 more palatable. And if you think those prices are, kind of acceptable, think about the LG V30, which will only sell for $800. All of these phones are now costing fortunes. I mean, if you pair up the iPhone X with, let's say, Apple Care, for example, the price goes up to $1,500, which is as close to as a MacBook Pro. And I'm sure the MacBook Pro has more power than the iPhone X. So is it really smart of Apple to, one, delay the iPhone X, and two, to charge ridiculous price tags for the phone? I really don't think so. And I know this is a special edition iPhone, but hear me out. When the first iPhone came out in 2007, it had practically no competition. There was no Samsung, there was no Huawei, there was no LG. All of those smartphone manufacturers weren't present back then. So Apple had full monopoly over this touchscreen smartphone market. But now they don't have that kind of, safety seat. And for them to charge the highest price tag and still deliver the phone the latest out of all the other competitors is a recipe waiting for disaster. But once again though, these are just my thoughts on the iPhone X from what I've seen already and how the iPhone X compares to its present competitors, as well as the future competitors that might be coming from Google as well as Huawei. Of course, I am open to other people's opinions, so leave them down in the comments down below. And I said down twice. And let me know what you guys think about the phone. Are you going to be picking one up? As far as I'm concerned, if I do get to sell a kidney by the time the iPhone X comes out, I might pick it up. But that's all for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.